Drug use.
Drugs. Just drugs.
Oh God, what's that? What's coming out here? What's coming out here, Dan? Come on, fucking chicken power.
Welcome to the first ever podcast on Forvever Hardcore, the new channel coming to you. So tune in for more, hit like and all that other shit that you're supposed to do. Today we've come together to have the discussion of old school versus new school. Really, we've got the front man himself, the pioneer of the new school. You've heard of him all before, Mr. Kuba, and the master of nasty, Leroy Davis. So we thought we'd get together and try and unpick some of the things about old school and new school that people think that we're rowing about. I often get my DMs, I'm like, oh, Kuba says this, and actually, it's not really as different as people think, and you don't have to pick sides necessarily, but we're going to lay some stuff out, possibly have an argument and a fight, and see where it turns out.
I've just spent 15 minutes shadowboxing, so I'm ready.
I didn't bring my Stone Island, which I'm a bit gutted about, to be honest.
Oh, mine's in the car, it's fine. It's still here, I can feel it.
Well, actually, Cuba's kind of new school. Leroy's advanced.
It's the OG. It's the OG.
I'm somewhere in the middle, if you like.
Yeah.
So I've kind of experienced both ends, so I'll have a little bit.
And I was just shipped in because I could talk shit.
Yeah. Hold on. Firstly, though, I just want to say we've all just finished legs, other than Dan.
Yeah,
that's why he's podcast leader.
I train the upper legs.
So we're a bit wiped out. So we do apologise for the wobbly jaws and the tired faces. So yeah, not a good idea to do your first podcast after leg day.
And the fact that we got no one doing the makeup.
I've got no excuse for looking this shit, other than I always look like a burns victim that Cuba always seems to point out. It's really nice.
That almost came out then. I
had it on my tongue. I was going to get there before you. I was ready. I know you were. That's why I would put it out there first. I was going to let you take that. The first thing was like, I was saying that I get messages sometimes being like, oh, fucking the new school guys are doing this and it's shit. And I'm sort of like, I've seen messages of like, oh, the hardcore crew, you know, the dickheads in flannel shirts, like, I'm going to like this and stuff like this. It's like a perceived, like, kind of us versus them, like, mentality around this old school versus new school. And I just wanted to kind of, like, probe on behalf of the viewers of, like, what the fuck that actually means and what, like, new school means to anyone, if anything, and just see if anyone can like define it. We've been given the labels I've never really considered. I mean, I'm old. I'm definitely fucking old, and you are a little bit younger than me.
Let's see if we can decipher this battle. I mean, we had a phone call maybe 3-4 weeks back.
Yeah, we actually did.
And because
quick phone call, an hour and 15 minutes later.
Yeah, we got discussing about this topic of the old, let's get into the pull down, the single arm pull down.
Yeah.
I was wondering how long that would take.
Yeah, let's get this one out of the way first. So, again, I gave Kuba a call, and because a few people, we posted a fun video with James Holmes, didn't we? About all the attachments on the cable and stuff. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, is that aimed at Kuba? I was like, Kuba doesn't give a fuck if I tagged him in the put. And plus, number one, it isn't about Kuba. It's just about the whole, everybody seems obsessed with this kind of putting like 2 pounds on the stack with like a 10-second positive and like a 20-second negative. That's a great exercise if it's done with some intent, as we spoke. Like, you know, strong positive, hard contraction, controlled negative, absolutely fine. It's just when I see these guys doing like, man, they're on the machine for like 30 minutes doing like this single arm pull down thing with like zero intensity. And it's all your fault, Kuba. So we'll take it from there.
Right. Shall I go first?
Yeah, get in. Let's settle this battle, man.
Now, I'm going to have to try and get this as concise as possible without going off on a tangent. Now, a couple of points that I definitely want to go through from today. Now, how do you define old school versus new school? Like, in your minds, like, what is the difference? Because to me, it doesn't really differ all that much. I'll give you an example from today's session, right, with points that Leroy was going through and what we actually did. We went all in across every single exercise. Now, at any given point, I did not feel like a single rep was a rep that was putting me in danger or a rep that was unproductive. Every single set, every single rep, every single second of the work that we did today was productive and I felt safe. Now, does that mean I'm not going 100%? No, actually the opposite. I'm going 100% and beyond because I've got people that actually see the line that we can cross to bridge into past that safety zone. So the reason why there's a massive divide at the moment is people have got a lack of understanding of what's actually new school and what's optimal, what's not optimal. Being optimal is not training with barely any load and no intensity. Actually, it's opposite. It's having the ability to pick the right movements, right exercise selection that's going to allow you to train at 100% intensity for time and increase your longevity in the sport with no injuries. That is what's optimal, is being able to pick these movements that allow you to train longer with no injuries and make better progress. That's the whole point. Now, a lot of points that Leo went through today is a lot of points to actually go through with a lot of clients. So any of you guys that are watching Coach Cielen, right, he's definitely one of the most, I would say most researched guys in the world when it comes to biomechanics. He's definitely one of the pioneers, right? And a lot of the stuff that Leroy actually said is some of the bits that actually goes through on his N1 education. Now, when it comes to optimal training, I'll give you an example of what Leroy actually cued today on the leg curl and the leg extension. He was telling us to keep his knees in and keep your toes in, keep your knees in, keep your feet in. Now, that's some of the cues that we teach people and actually try and train, is keeping your joints stacked. So I think the biggest barrier as well is the language that we use. It's a lot different.
Yeah, like, it's just set in a different context.
Yeah, 100%. So Leroy's giving the cues that I would give other people, but just in a different language.
Yeah.
Now, he's actually telling us a lot of things that prevent injuries and actually keep you pretty fresh. Now, people that don't have the understanding will look at Leroy's training, look at your training and think, that's not optimal, they're going crazy. But it's like, today, we absolutely went fucking berserker. None of these reps gave me any pain. And I was able to do extra work that I normally would never really do, like the drop sets and set extensions, etc. So I think that's the biggest divide. It's like, your reference towards a single arm pull down, it's like, yeah, I do these movements, but I've got a stack and a gym pin on there. So I'm not doing these movements with a little bit of weight. I'm doing these movements to death until I cannot perform another rep safely. And I'm not using baby weights. You know, I am doing these movements, yes, but there's a difference into how I actually do them and why I do them.
Yeah, but there's some stimulus there. I think people are getting a little bit confused with what they can feel. You know, I can do like 30 pounds on the pec deck for 10 sets and I'll get a massive chest pump. But to me, that's not breaking down any fibers. That's not doing any kind of damage, if you like.
So I think where we get, well, we're not getting confused. What's happening is you got Kuba coaching these people and explaining everything in detail. Myself and Dan, we do exactly the same. Just obviously with us, we want to use a bit more weight. We want to get a bit more intensity on it. That's not saying that Kuba's students are not getting intensity. But what's happening is the copycats. The copycats are seeing this, calling themselves coaches, and then they're relaying that onto their students. But they're not explaining and going through the ergonomics, the muscle groups, what the weight being pulled is supposed to do. I mean, I heard the word refined. Two lads told me they were refining their chest. They haven't got a fucking chest. So how can they refine something that's not there? So it's the information that's being relayed from the experienced coaches to their students. And then you've got the copycat so-called coaches who are copying the so-called movements, but not explaining and going through and demonstrating the movements in the right way. How to make a muscle group redundant so we don't incorporate doing the movement. It's that's sort of mixing the balance up. And for people like myself, when I see people doing that, and I look at, fuck, who's taught them that? It's obviously not an experienced coach. You can tell he's not being taught by an experienced coach just by looking at it. And I think that's where the massive difference is. So we've got old school, we got new school, and we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not doing that at all. All we're doing is trying to get people through a hard, heavy, intense workout with not injuring them, and that's the goal. They get results out of it, and they go home with no injuries. So I think the sort of the mishmash of information and the instructional part of a lot of coaches are failing on, in my opinion.
The shot over the bow really was how people are interpreting it. They're taking an extreme version of something that looks very controlled, and they're going right the way, disregarding intensity, intent, all that, throwing that all in the bin, and just going for control. And you'll get exactly the same odds as if you stripped control and all of that and just went for all out, balls out. Both options, you'd get fuck all.
So Anth made an excellent point. People train for sensation, right? For the feel. If your setup of the exercise, your execution, controlling tempo and range of motion like Leroy cued us today all day, which was control your end of motion, pause in the stretch, pause at the top, good control on the way down, power up, right? That is simply saying control your centric and then drive up with power but still control, right? Sensation literally does not fucking matter. If your setup of the exercise, so the way you actually position yourself on the machine is correct, if your execution is correct, it is fucking impossible not to feel that muscle. So I never ever tell people to try and feel something. We fix that through good setup, good execution, controlling range of motion, tempo and intensity. If you get in a machine, you nail all these things, it is impossible not to feel that muscle. It is virtually impossible. So you use a load, you don't have to use load that Anth uses, that I use or Dan uses. You use the load that you can on an individual basis to work to your max capacity whilst being able to stay in total control of the movements, controlling the end ranges, and being able to go out with all that intensity. That's the absolute key, in my opinion. Whereas now, people get confused with a misunderstanding of just training for sensation. Like, training for sensation does nothing. If it did something right, we could all sit at home, do press-ups, and we'd look like fucking Jay Cutler, but we don't.
This is the part that's missing. I'm not saying everybody has to use enormous poundages. But again, sometimes, you know, I own the gym and stuff, and with Charlie, we're partners in the gym. And I look around when I'm in during the day and stuff. And you got guys like using literally this on the stack. It's not really going to do anything.
No.
As in stimulating tissue growth anyway.
Do they know any better? That's the thing. Do they know any better? That's.
Yeah, so it's, like I referred earlier, that Coach Cass, he's posting a lot of content at the moment, is basically saying, look, optimal does not mean training with no intensity. Optimal does not mean training with no intent, you know, no real effort. I think that's the main, most important thing. Whatever you do, give you 100% effort. And even if your execution is not really that great or up to par just yet, it will be over time, but you're still giving that effort 100%. So who's going to get more results? Someone that's not necessarily the most optimal, but giving it 100% effort versus someone that's optimal, giving it 20% effort. Let me tell you, 100% effort guy is going to grow the most, and he's the guy that's going to win. So that is the biggest divide, and that's the biggest conversation that we actually have at the moment. It's like, yes, I do teach all these movements. Yes, you know, I break down all these movements in detail, but the main underlying factor and the main principle still stays the same. It's effort.
Yeah, it's got to make it challenging, haven't it? It's really that simple.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that the issue that comes is really that a lot of some of the coaches, you don't know, because you're deciphering Coach Kasim's stuff, it's pretty advanced stuff.
Yeah.
But you're like tuned in to do that, and then I was a teacher for 10 years, it's your job to deliver that to the person so that they understand it. What we're getting now is a lot of people regurgitating shit that they don't actually even understand to a load of people that definitely don't fucking understand, and then they're coming in and doing the things that we're seeing. So the shot over the bow it's aimed at the outcome of a lot of stuff. If I say loads of shit I don't understand and people now go, oh, I don't understand that must be fucking good. We're getting a saturation of like that. If I don't get it, it must be good. Well, actually, that just means you've got a bad teacher.
So if you can't explain something to someone for them to fully grasp it, or if you can't explain something complex to someone that, you know, doesn't really understand the complex stuff, you don't really know what you're talking about. But at times, when I do content in certain occasions, like I'm forced to use a certain language or I'm forced to speak a certain way because of the people that I am speaking to at the time, right? When I speak to clients, it's a lot different. I'm breaking them down to the point where I know someone with not that much experience, not that really any level of understanding of, you know, the advanced language when it comes to biomechanics, they will be able to understand it, right? But that is the biggest divide. It's like some of the Coach Kasim stuff, most people read that and they'll be like, what the fuck is this, right? And that is a fact, but it's the delivery that comes a long way. It's like, you need to have the ability to really go through things and let it sink in for someone to understand it completely and truly and know the actual purpose behind it. It's that some of the posts I'll make it sound, you know, a little bit fancy because I have to for certain people that I have to speak to. But then other posts, you'll read it and let me tell you, a fucking monkey will understand it. So I think that's the kind of bridge that we have to cross at times as well. It's like at the moment, the market's so saturated with a lot of clients and a lot of coaches. And I think sometimes that's the way to sell.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But it's like, if they're selling like that, do they have that ability to deliver what they're trying to sell? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Results speak for themselves. All you've got to do is literally look at their results they're getting themselves and results they're getting with the clients. I think that's the biggest thing that we always need to look at. Like, regardless of what methods you use, regardless of what we do, results speak.
I agree 100% there. And a coach, my advice to anybody who's starting out or who's trying to get advanced in training is, you want to coach, great. You want to coach, happy days. When you find a coach or you're looking up coaches, look at their pedigree. And what I mean by their pedigree is, who are they? What have they done? What have they achieved? And you know, and even who their coach is, because that would tell you, that would give you a lot of information. You don't go, a lot of people will go for the cheapest. It doesn't always work that way. The cheapest coaches are probably the ones with the less knowledge. So look at their pedigree. Look at who they are, what they've achieved, and who they're coaching as well, and look at their achievements, because that will tell you a story. So that's my advice: is look at the coach you're gonna go with. Look at their pedigree. Look who they are, what they are, and how they've got there. And hopefully that will cut out a lot of the sort of dodgy information that's going from so-called coach to client.
If their clients are not making any progress, that's a big red flag.
100%. 100%. Something's not right if they're not.
I mean, the other thing, obviously you're talking about that's what sells and stuff like that.
What's that?
You're talking about what sells, and that needs to be important as well, and that you pitch to multiple audiences, of course.
Yeah.
And then we have like the new thing where like coaching's become almost competition in itself, like as well. So people will also come with like, oh, if your coach is doing this, then they're shit. Or if their coach is a bodybuilder, well, you couldn't possibly do two things in your life because...
not going to go to that
like,
yeah, because coaching is a really hard job.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, maybe if you're biting off more than you can chew, possibly. But
if you're working down a mine for the other part of it, then you might struggle. Again, that's a wormhole. I'm sure you've done that. Like you've been down that rabbit hole a few times of that conversation.
What with the coaches?
Yeah, I just think it's weird how there's like an hour battle of coaches. Like even at like shows, someone would be like, "Oh, your coach isn't here. That means he's a cunt. You should come." Like it's like mate, the war stuff is like, it's mad that like now coaching is a competition.
So the way I look at it is this, right? What would you rather do? Would you rather me be at a show, or do you want me to get you ready so you fucking win? Like, ultimately, like a lot of coaches sell that pitch. It's like, yeah, I attend all the shows, but it's like, it does not matter if half of your clients are not on the money. Like, attend all the shows that you want, but look at the clients that are stepping on stage, the 4 weeks out, the 3 weeks out. They're not actually stage ready, or they're posting their favorite shots. Like the guys that always say you can't do both, they're just fucking lazy. Bodybuilding is simple. You wake up on time, you eat your meals, you do your work, you train. That is it. It's like without coaching, what else would I do? Would I just sit at home and watch Netflix all day and YouTube all day? It's like the amount of spare time that I have. Literally, I go in the gym and I'm in the gym 2.5 hours a day. That's my time across the day. I train 2 days on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off. So 4 to 5 days a week I train, right? Like, what else would I do if not, I could literally have a full-time job and do this at the same time, which, if you do coaching properly, it is a full-time job. Now, bodybuilding forces you to be in a good routine. Bodybuilding forces you to be on time with your work, especially if you treat it like a real job, which we all do. And the coaches often say that. It's like, the routine's horrible. The clients are waiting fucking days for responses. It's like, I could go on about this all day, but that's another insecurity thing. And that's another thing to try and sell to get more clients in. It's like, you do you, pal, but ultimately, what are your results and what kind of results are your clients getting? If you can't lead from the front, you've got no right to speak. If you've done one show, fair enough. Get out there as a coach, right? Keep trying, but then don't just say, oh, I'm coaching now, so, my body was going to step back. To do what? To sit on your laptop and assess check-ins. Get a grip. It's like, it's not a hard job. And the reason why I say that is like, I've got a client, right? Stevie. She's a single mum. She's got kids. She looks after them. She works and she does all that. She preps and she has never, ever came away with plan. Like, she does everything to a fucking T. And I mean, her life is like 110 mile an hour from the time she wakes up until 8 p.m. every single day. If she can do what she does, let me tell you, I can coach and bodybuild, no problem. No fucking problem.
Well, even just in coaching, you've seen hundreds of people, the difference between what people think is hard is nuts. You have people that have ridiculous. That, and they're smashing it, and then you have like, oh, my chicken laid an egg, so I couldn't eat all day because I needed to eat some Mars bars. Like, people's like limit of what they're like. But so like, my cat rolled over, so like I had to get AIDS.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable because coaching is such an easy job. It's a privilege to do what we do because it's not hard. Like, it's not a physically demanding job. And I would even argue, if you're on top of your shit, it's not really that mentally demanding either, because if you're on top of your shit, you're not going to be chasing your tail. If you don't bite off more than you can chew, you're going to be fine. You can handle a lot more than you think.
Yeah, I mean, people have done. I mean, obviously coaching is hard, and like your level of coaching is way above like minor numbers and stuff like that. But I think people, like, the saturation is like, people are seeing, those are the people that get it wrong. They're seeing it's too easy because the money's potentially very good. But if you lock your shit down, humans are capable of a much more amazing stuff than looking at some shit on a fucking laptop.
100%. And let me tell you, most of these guys, they probably, can't do it because half the time they're doing check-ins and probably half the time they're probably watching YouTube or Pornhub. So it is going to be harder. It is going to be harder doing your work if you spend 5 minutes doing a check-in and then 15 minutes, wasting time.
Yeah, you got to do the clean.
So what do the clients do then? If they're not happy or seeing results, what would be your advice?
If you're not happy, you're not seeing results, something's clearly wrong. It's like, even if you are seeing results, but they're not results that you're kind of expecting, to a degree, you can always do more. You can always, if you know in yourself, you are following instructions and you're doing everything 110%. And this is where clients have got to be honest with themselves, because people will tell you doing everything 110%, but you're not with them 24/7. They don't send you all the training clips. It's like, I have a lot of my clients send me training clips. That's part of the service, right? Now, some, I have to ask for them to send me training clips. I should not be having to ask for them, right? And secondly, it's like, some of the training clips they send through, it's like, yes, they're going to have a lot of work to go through the execution. That's fine. But the most important thing I want to see is the effort, right? If someone's putting effort in, like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter. Like, your execution does not have to be 110%. You will get the results. Like, effort's king.
Will you have this, even if like, I've missed a check-in maybe once in my life. I'm
just got not on prep, rolled up.
Not on prep though.
Let's go.
Not on prep though.
Doesn't matter, Daniel.
But I remember what Amp said. It's right. If you're not getting the check-in on time, you're fucking someone else up. If you haven't structured your existence to make that time for the check-in, it shouldn't be a rushed thing. You should have your allotted time to like do that. Bodybuilding was what taught me structuring. My life was a fucking mess, and bodybuilding taught me the structure to do everything else.
Very much so. Yeah.
Everything else. I actually learned the ability to cope with the rest of my life through the structure of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally like every day to be exactly the same until I die.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's much harder to sell hard work and something challenging.
Yeah,
we
had this discussion today, didn't we? Nobody wants to hear.
What do you think is the hardest battle that I have to go through on a weekly basis with clients? Would you guess? Go and try and take a wild guess. What's the hardest thing that I have to try and get people to do that will lead to far better results? And that's just a one little thing out of the daily thing. What do you think it is?
Pure consistency. That's what I would say.
Alongside of that,
get up on time.
Get up on time and go to bed at the same time every day. How hard is that?
That falls in the consistency.
No. But listen, right? Yeah. If you're a coach or if you've got a normal job where you've got set structure, it is not hard to go to bed on the same time every day and wake up at the same time or within, 30, 40-minute window, right? It's not. If you know you've got a fucking 1,000 grams of carbs to eat next day, you can't afford to get up fucking 30, 40 minutes late or an hour late or 2 hours late. That's a fact. So that is literally the hardest thing that I have to battle every single week, is trying to get someone to even do that. And it's even pro athletes, It really is. I've got a couple of girls that want to get to the Olympia. I have a couple of figure girls. And I'm like, every single week, I'm like, you want to compete this year, you want to do well, you need to sort your shit out. And, everyone wants to do well in prep. And everyone can switch it on in prep. But if you can't do it in off-season, don't expect to win a pro show and step on stage at Olympia. It's just not going to fucking happen. Get that straight out of your mind. And, whether people like it or not, that's the harsh reality and truth. And I'm at a point now where I can actually say that now as well and not have to worry that client will leave, because if they do leave, good. I don't want to work with that client because they'll not get to Olympia. Let me tell you that for now.
And that's not changed since I first started.
There you go.
We looked at bodybuilding as a chain, and in that chain were certain links. Your nutrition was a link. Your rest and recuperation was a link. Your vitamins and minerals was a link. Your training was a link. Now, if you messed up, there's only 4 links, but if you messed up any one of them 4 links, your rest and recuperation, or you didn't have enough meals, or your vitamins and minerals and other bits and pieces that came into that. If you messed up one of them chains, one of them links, the chain fell apart. And that was educated to us. Yep. And we've educated, so that's not changed. The discipline, the regimental behaviour and the discipline shouldn't change. And unfortunately, we got a lot of sort of the younger ones, they're not mentally prepared for that. They don't understand it. Yeah. They don't understand the fact that you got to be disciplined, and they don't understand the fact that it's not nice. It's going to hurt. Sometimes it hurts, and they've got to put the hard work in.
Yep.
It's not going to come easy. A lot of them think they're sold a sort of promise that it's going to come easy. It doesn't come easy. It comes easy if you put the work in.
It's going to hurt. You're going to be tired. You're going to be hungry. Accept that shit. And sometimes you're probably going to feel fucking sick. So deal with it. That's part of bodybuilding.
Physically sick and physically coach.
Yep. Yep.
It's like that old saying, if you've got a chair with one leg missing, it's no good, is it? So
yeah, it's domino effect. One variable falls apart, it all falls apart.
Right, Dan, what else have you got on your itinerary? Dan's very organised.
I would just ask, I'm the shoulder day guy, so it's like, I will write lists. I won't train legs, but I can write a list. I was just going to bring up drug use. There's now, like, obviously, science is now fully into PEDs. There's a lot more knowledge on it. There's a lot more. Well, there's not really that much more research, but people are looking more into it and presenting it and stuff like that. And I just wanted to probably start with Leroy.
Yeah.
Of like the compounds that were used back in the day.
So basically, the subject of this podcast for clickbait is going to be drug use.
But we're not
just drugs.
Let me point out, we are not qualified doctors, and we're not giving you advice. We're just giving you information of what we've experienced in the past.
Opinions.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, so in the early 90s, our list was probably about big. It was, Sustanon, Deca, Duravelon.
Everyone wants to know what Dorian took.
It was. You're quite lucky nowadays, but we only had a very small sort of selection. It wasn't vast, but the one thing you could guarantee was it was good stuff. It was good, proper stuff. It came from a right source. It hadn't been tampered with or messed about with. It was stuff, and you got results from it. My sort of view on it today is very rare I'll give information or advice, but someone come to me not long ago and says, "What do you think of this, Lee?" And it was a list of all the stuff that he'd been advised. And again, it's by his coach to take. That would have killed me. You'd knock a rhino over, personally. If he's all, so you can tell just by looking at that list. So are you taking all that? He says, yeah.
Was that just anabolics, though?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And, this guy was fucking 12 stone, winging wet. So that, he should have. So it's obvious, and I've tried to explain to you this. I said, look, mate, it's obvious what you're taking isn't real. It can't be real. And again, going back to advice, if you are going to use the stuff, and if you're going to compete, let's be honest, if you're going to compete and you want to compete, it's got to be part of that lit chain. It's got to be part of your vitamins and minerals. Yeah. So, but again,
actually is.
Look at the person who's advising you. Look at the person who's bending over backwards to get you to sell you these stuff. And have a look. Asking frequently, why does he want to sell you this stuff? And has he used it himself? And where's he getting it from? And if you don't get the answers you want, or you don't think you've got the honest answers, then you need to look elsewhere, because unfortunately there are a lot of people forcing and selling this stuff, and it's crap, it's shit. I wouldn't give it to a fucking dead pig. But again, you got people who can see a shortcut. Why am I doing that? They're being sold. They're being sold a dream that isn't a dream. They're being sold a shortcut. A very expensive shortcut that will never happen. So again, look at the person. Ask yourself questions. Why is he doing it? Why does he want to help you? Why do you think he wants to help you? And what's he getting out of it? And I'll tell you what he's getting out of it. Fucking your money. That's it.
Basically, don't trust the guy.
That's my advice on nowadays. But I'm a dinosaur when it comes to that stuff. I don't really know that much about it nowadays. But that's my experience.
So from the small list, what do you think for you, Kuba, the biggest changes that have happened probably in the last 6 years of uses of stuff like that? Courses have changed massively recently.
It depends, because you've still got the camps that just, I've seen the cycles that you've mentioned, by the way. It's every 4 weeks it changes, and it's mental. It's basically just every compound, and every 4 weeks it just changes, including orals and everything else. That is ridiculous. Now, what would deem as the new school, so to speak, it's more so everyone uses what has been approved for human use, what has seen clinical trials on women, etc. But unfortunately, these compounds, what people have to understand, it's one, you don't hold no water tension with them. You don't see the instant results from them that people expect. And unfortunately, that's the battle you have to play with. It's yes, you can probably take something that is not going to give you the push and the oomph that you're going to get from certain other compounds. But ultimately, your blood work's going to be better. You're not going to have high blood pressure.
And it's safer.
You're not going to feel like total crap. It's safer. It's it's seen clinical trials and it's been used on women at crazy high doses for months and months and months without any, detriment to the health, so to speak. And that's been monitored, under the trials as well. So ultimately, you're always going to have that battle, because unfortunately, and I'm going to say unfortunately, drugs work. You take enough of them, they are going to mask hard work and poor nutrition, poor recovery. And that is a fact. So when these cycles are prescribed by certain people, it's like, yeah, they're probably going to work for some people. And then if people are getting results, why would they look at doing something else that's potentially healthy for them when they feel fucking great? They're going to the gym, they don't have to do that much, they're growing. So it's definitely, a little bit of a divide on there. I would definitely expect no changes from that moving forward, because that's the industry we're in and that's the world we live in. And it's like, we look at our sport how it is, but then you look at normal general public and you look at what happens on a weekend with the amount of drugs people take on a weekend basis or even a weekly basis. And, what's going to cause more damage? We just don't know. But
well, often now you're seeing people that are doing that and then they're doing the rest of the bits. And your local bus driver's doing a gram of Tren because someone down the gym told him it was a good idea. And so, yeah, but he's right. Like, you can be pretty shit and do some gear and actually do all right. You can mask a lot of that shit, but you're paying for it when you could actually just do a bit of work. But people are taking that option. Obviously, there's a point where you can't out-roid like a shit. There's a point.
Did you just say that word, Dan?
Roid.
Outroid.
So basically, Dan's advocating that bus drivers get on the Tren.
Mate, I tell you, I swear, at least one bus driver in Bristol's on Tren.
When we talk about like new school, old school, I think the old school was get your trainer right, get your nutrition right, get your rest correct.
New school, get your cycle.
Yeah, it is.
Before you get your membership.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Then you add in the performance enhancement now. Now it's the other way around. We've had guys come here, do you sell steroids? Obviously not. We don't sell steroids in the gym.
Yeah.
How long have you been training? I'm going to start next week.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
All the way around is crazy.
The worst thing is as well, though, it's like people feel so comfortable just asking.
Yeah, I remember.
And it's like, how ridiculous is that? It's
years ago back in the day, it was
wow.
Dare I ask for some
how crazy is that? People just outright ask. I think that is mental. I think that is mental that people do that. So,
but again, it's the it's the promise of the shortcut, isn't it? It's Dan's just checking out his Excel chart.
Oh no, you do. I was just seeing what's coming next. It's bus driving and we covered that.
Bus driving.
One of the other things I wanted, we covered some of these because, #blessed. Talk about bodybuilding, because the other thing, the old school versus new school, is that everyone now is shit. And only good bodybuilders were back then. And stuff. And this is kind of like something that's been, I'm not saying that's true, but that's the perception of when I talk to someone who's young, they're like, oh, well, you're old, so you must think everyone's shit and Chris Bumstead's shit. And
do you mean the 90s versus now?
Yeah, there's
the 90s always gets brought up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
It's that discussion.
If we're
going to bring up the old school versus new school, we've got to bring that up.
Yeah.
So when you look at 90s and you look at lineup as a whole, right? Top 2, top 3 were unbelievable. After that top 2, top 3, it's not really. You compare the guys right now, a normal pro show,
the last one,
a larger pro show, top 6. Look at this Arnold's top 6, right? You compare that lineup to a normal top 6 at an Arnold from maybe back in the day. Top 3 arguably probably would have been better, but when you look at the lineup as a whole, I think it's pretty comparable.
Yeah, like the depth of the whole. Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we had a bit of a lull round Sean Roden, round that time when he won in terms of depth. I thought the year that's just gone in terms of depth and the subsequent Arnold has been deep.
Deep in comparison to what?
So, well, compared to them, I thought around that time, Roden, and then who won afterwards? Brandon Curry. I thought it was light for a few years, and I've seen
we're going to be backwards.
Yeah, I've seen an up spiral. So for people that's asked me, for those I thought the last one, because there was some shit about that, wasn't it?
Listen, sister, right? Back in the day, bodybuilding was super niche. So you had people that did bodybuilding, did actual competitions, who was already genetic elite. Like, you did not have just so much mainstream people coming in the gym and training and wanting to compete. So now you've got a lot more people wanting to compete that, unfortunately, haven't had the best card dealt when it comes to genetic potential. And that is a fact. Back then, you had the guys that had the predisposition for it, and they was the ones that was always competing. I think that's the biggest difference. Back then, it wasn't mainstream. It was guys that was born for it. People that were born to do it was fucking doing it. And that is the biggest difference. Now, people that are born for it have probably got a predisposition to do another sport that probably brings them a lot more money in than bodybuilding does. Because let's face it, if you're just a normal bodybuilder and you expect to earn a living from bodybuilding, see you later, pal. You've got no chance. So I think that's the biggest difference, comparing, 90s and even, Ronnie's era to now. It's a lot more mainstream. A lot more people are doing it. And the guys that potentially would have had great genetics to be a great bodybuilder are probably doing other things, because you look at athletes now that are doing other sports. Fucking hell. I look at them and I think, imagine if he trained and actually did. Like, look at Francis Ngannou. He does not lift weights, and he's 300 pounds.
Yeah, you're all right.
He's fighting, right, in cage, 270 pounds, peeled, and he doesn't lift weights.
Yeah.
At all. Have you seen him bench?
No.
It's like, mate, a plate aside, and he's like this. Yeah, and the guy's got like 22-inch arms. These guys aren't bodybuilding anymore, because
he made a good choice, really.
Realistically, yeah. It's that, or he would have been in a wheelchair by now. So.
Back when I started competing back in 1932, you were kind of weird if you did a bodybuilding show. Like you see, it was a little bit of a cult sport, wasn't it? There was no ladies in the gym.
It was a cult sport when I started, when I was like 16.
Yeah, you were a bit strange if you bodybuilded, weren't you?
Well, you're definitely gay. That was the thing. You were like, that was.
Look at a schoolboy coming in with his uniform on. Let's get him in showers. Not this again. But I had a lot of this at school.
Back in the 90s, like late 80s and 90s, the actual bodybuilding community, the professional bodybuilding community, was very small, and the genetic pool within that community wasn't great. So the actual physiques that did come out, like the top three, were like fucking jaw dropping. Compared to the rest, the top three, they were, and in some years you probably had the top six that were jaw dropping. But then that sort of phased out. Granite look sort of peeled off and all that, and I'm not saying that didn't work just as hard. It's just things say it's the sort of the pharmacies sort of changed. Things changed.
I've got clients, right, that have got incredible genetic potential, but they just don't want to work.
Yeah, they don't.
I've got a couple of guys that I even tell them straight. I'm like, you could be unbelievable. Like, and that's a fact. You've got guys, Aziz. I don't know, I'm not sure if you've heard of him or not, but a kid from up Leeds, right? Aziz. If I could put him in a basement and just feed him and train him, 2 years, and he would be top 6 at Olympia.
Yeah.
That's the sort of genetic potential he has. But he prefers to party on a weekend. So, you've got to do what you enjoy. And there's just so many different things that people can do now that are easy, and they still give them that, gratification in different ways. There's just so many different options. Like back in the 90s, you didn't have the things that people have now.
You had 4 TV channels.
4 TV channels. Don't get me wrong, they still had plenty of V's and stuff they could have at the weekend. But it was a lot different,
I think when you speak about genetics as well, we always think about like physical genetics.
Mental's massive,
genetically, if you get that combination,
that's when it's scary. Yeah, when you get a combination of someone that is mentally there, like look at Ronnie. That is the prime example. Dorian,
Yeah, that's the thing. When those two things align, you rarely get both at 100.
And
when you do, then that's who you get.
Yeah, when you do, it's game over. Like you see it now in other sports, though. You see it in fighting game. You see it in boxing. Like you do get them genetic marbles that are just made for it.
You've like found your like the thing you were actually destined to do.
Yeah. But there's so many people that I look at them and think like, you're destined to bodybuild. There's a kid at my gym, right? And I call him Kevin Levrone because he literally looks like Kevin Levrone, just a small version. Natural. He looks unbelievable. He'll train for 3 months. He'll look like he could pull a step on stage. Like feathers in his shoulders, feathers in his chest, triceps like fully straight. It literally looks like a small version, I swear to you, small version of Kevin Levrone. Meg? Yeah, you know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah, I hear him.
Yeah,
Fuck him.
That's what I mean. I tell him, I'm like, mate, if I had your genetics, I would be top 3 Olympian now by now, easily. He's unbelievable. He will train for 3 months and he'll have like 2 months off. He'll come back.
What's he doing for 2 months?
Listen, he'll come back and he barely looks any different.
Oh, fuck
Like,
off.
he'll not train for 2 months and he still comes back and he looks like a small Kevin Levrone. I'm like,
I don't even know what I hate him.
I'm like, I hate you. Do you know what I mean?
Ban him.
Yeah, it's like, you
You
know
don't
what
even make him
Jim?
smaller.
No, and we need a basement for these people so we can
Yeah.
just feed them, train them.
That's true. The Fitzel bodybuilding workshop.
Yeah, I just wish it wasn't so frowned upon.
So that's where we should be moving.
Yeah,
Old school versus
we should be
business,
making
the new
basements.
Ultra flex basements coming to you.
Trapping all the genetic freaks in there.
Yeah, let's see what we can come up with.
The other thing we're gonna talk about, because we compared the bodybuilding like opens and stuff like that. I did have one conversation earlier about, because there was a little talk about maybe combining 212 again with the open.
Nah.
Do you think it would be a good idea? Would you want to see it?
No, I wouldn't. I think it would just... You've got the top 3 at Olympia that are 2-on-2 guys. They can be competitive in the open, but not at the big shows. Not at the Arnolds, not at the... Apart from Clarida. It's like, if they take away 2-on-2, they are taking away an opportunity for so many people to compete and be competitive due to the height. Literally, it's literally as simple as that. Like, these guys can't be 250 pounds on stage. Like someone that's 5'3", 5'4", 5'5", even 5'6", it's like they can't compete with these guys unless you're Derek Lunsford and he's like 5'7" or something. So he's like, borderline, but he's a freak. But if they take away that class, it will hurt so many people.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement about our class as well, isn't there?
Yeah, 100%.
A lot of excitement.
I think a lot of that decision has become around Sean and Derek. Since those two guys have blew up, it's like, should we change it over?
Hattie was a 2-on-2 as well.
Yeah.
But that just shows you the quality in these classes because they've got a weight cap to make. Like they diet hard, and being at Olympia this year, like men's open. Don't get me wrong, Derek and Hattie were unbelievable. It's like some of these guys are comparing like Hattie's back to Dorian's, but it's like Dorian was amazing, but you compare Dorian's quads to Hattie's. Like Hattie's quads are like straight top to bottom, like they're unbelievable. Like you look at Dorian's quads, they're great, but they're not really. There's not a single striation on them. But they're comparing Dorian's back versus Hattie's. It's like, come on, his back's not a weak body part, but it's not his strong part. You can't do that. You can't compare that.
Yeah, I remember they were doing the comparisons. Because we talked about that, the lower back thing.
Oh,
and
the lighting,
lower back?
the lighting at the stage lighting was shocking.
How is the lighting at the Olympia like shitter than like the PCA? Like how is that fucking happening?
They have moved it now to Florida, and apparently it's going to be better.
Are they going to take the lights with them?
I hope they're not taking them with them.
I
think they're going to have
a grenade in.
They've been saying for the past 10 years, let's go back to the Ironman light. Let's get that guy in. It shouldn't cost us that much money. That was amazing.
I mean, there are lighting specialists. We've got one. It has broken halfway through it. But like, do you know? But like, if I'm sure there's like a guy for that they could call.
Yeah.
It might cost more than a tenner, which obviously would be a bit of a shit.
I don't know, but it's women's physique. They were the most conditioned out of them all.
Really?
Meg's in the background.
Like the girls that came like 9th and 10th in women's physique, the condition wise, they were like in that men's open class, the only person that I think was in like crazy condition was Hattie and Charles Griffin.
Really?
Yeah. And Derek was from the back, unbelievably peeled from the back, but I think he was a little bit flat from the front because it showed in his quads and his chest. It was like empty. You know when you're not quite full and your smaller body parts still look a little bit deflated. Yeah, that's what he looked like. That's what he looked like. So I think Hani probably plays it a little bit safe because his good body parts were crazy. Like from the back, it was unbelievable. No one was touching him, but I don't think they pushed the envelope with fullness quite as much, and it definitely hurt him. Whereas when you look at overall packaging condition, the women are just insane, and I think they're just women that just diet harder.
I've been backstage at the Olympia years ago, and the most crazy conditioned athlete I've ever seen was Iris Kyle.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Absolutely
She's unbelievable. Sure. We actually met her going into the Olympia. That was like mad. She's still in shape as well. She's insane. I was actually backstage when 212 was getting ready. And I saw Sean like from here to Amph, and wow, he's next level. Sean alone is the best bodybuilder on the planet right now. Yeah. Like stood on himself. There's nobody touching him. There's like Mini Ronnie. He's unbelievable. No body parts missing. Condition was crazy. But even Sean, I think, because he carries so much muscle, I think he still could have been leaner.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at his lower back, there was still quite a lot of skin, like, folding over. But, like, he's got that much muscle. When he hits a pose, like, that's just fucking...
Spreads it.
Yeah.
Stretches it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Where does it go, though? Like, can he get bigger?
Sean?
Yeah.
Not much.
Not a lot.
How? It's
like, where would it go?
Yeah, because it is literally like...
Work on your, like, chin abdominals.
It is unbelievable. It's just that there's that much muscle on him. He's just like a little... Wow, it was mad. Oh, Sean Calderon as well. He came out of toilet as I was stood there. It was just posing constantly. So like, I said hello to him. It's like, hello. And then he just started posing. I'm like, okay, sweet. Mate, he looked crazy. And let me tell you, I think Sean Calderon, well, is it Sean? Angel. But his name is Sean. Yeah, Angel Calderon.
That's his Instagram handle.
He definitely pushes Sean a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's I don't know how he makes 2-on-2. He's unbelievable.
These people must just be hollow.
Must be.
They must
be.
The other thing was like classic, because this brought another thing of like everyone said, oh, like classics should be the new bodybuilding. Everyone's shit, and just classics now what it wasn't. And Bumstead should do open, and like.
If Chris does open, he's getting smoked.
Yeah,
he's getting smoked.
I know, but people. I mean, I know a lot of people are saying this is clickbait shit. Like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone should do the open now. All the 212s in and everything, and we'll just put like the board shorts, and everyone's gonna win. And like, we'll just have a huge like.
Just put occasion.
Yeah, just have a bonfire with some LSD, and we'll film it, and it'll be called the Olympia, and it's 20 quid on pay-per-view. I'm actually kind of like.
All of a sudden, it's a massive orgy.
See, I'd pay for that. That would be all right. We'll dip them all in chocolate, and then LSD. Oh. And then feed them to the lesbians. I mean, to be fair, we covered like most of the points. I've not talked that much. I'm not going to lie. I've a little
because
bit
I had 2 scoops of Atomic Bomb, 2 scoops of this isn't an ad. 2 scoops of Atomic Pump, and I actually
and you'll never be able to walk again. Yeah, that's the shittest ad ever.
Yeah, but you wouldn't advise anybody else to do it, would you?
No. The workout was awesome. Just 2 hours later,
it's just that you'll never.
Have you not noticed I've continuously rubbed my knees during this whole thing?
I have seen it.
Cuba's got the right idea.
Listen, I'm good. I'm good, man. I'm good.
Cuba hasn't moved. I left and went home, and you're still in exactly the same place.
Yeah. Let's just see the unique hack finish me off at the end.
Highlights of today's workout, then.
I smoked amp.
Oh, ding ding! It was close. New school versus old school.
Time next week.
Yeah, I'm going to visit Rotherham soon. We've had a challenge on the.
I reckon the side. Yeah, it's got helium in it. It's made of helium.
Which one?
All of them. That's what they do. They get the ultra fat. There's some sort of shipping issue. They send the heavy ones, and then there's special helium ones that go to Rotherham.
That was good because there was a bit of
there
was a bit of healthy kind of competition there. It was good.
Yeah,
I knew Cuba didn't want to kick off.
Healthy competition and safe.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, this is what I
100%.
say about Leo all the time. Everybody thinks he just shouts at everybody and swears and stuff.
No, I was actually really impressed with like his ability to finish the set at just the right moment before it gets in the danger zone. That was really impressive. So that's something that someone very, very experienced can only do.
Yeah, people get the wrong idea of the shouting and the swearing and stuff.
No.
It's all very precise.
Yeah, it is extremely.
Oh, so shouting,
Even the little cues as well.
Sometimes, Leo, I've heard you
You called me a chicken
see a
destroyer.
bugger sometimes.
You went, come on, you chicken destroyer. And I was like, what was he even fucking saying?
But tell me more, let's go!
It doesn't matter!
Yeah, turkey rapist.
Was that chicken power?
Was it chicken? Mate, you come up. There are some fucking blinders. I'll have to edit them out. But chicken destroyer, I don't know. Is that
I think it's because we've been to Nando's first. Do you remember that?
Eating chicken.
Next thing you know, Dan's got a chicken.
Yeah, you just feed them in whilst
Where's Alice? What Alice?
Well, I think that concludes the thing of like thinking it's different. It's not fucking different. You're trying to create a response, and creating a response, it needs to be fucking hard, and that's fundamentally the thing that I'm seeing missing the most. The gyms used to be filled with people flinging around weights that they shouldn't, and they didn't fucking get anywhere. And now we're getting people doing the opposite, doing no fucking weight, just mixing stuff in shakers and using it as hair gel, whatever the fuck they do in between. It's 3 hours, and they're getting fucking nowhere as well.
Yeah,
So-
we went from people like loading the leg press up to like £1 million and snapping their kneecaps in half.
Or
To
just
like
doing
now
half
doing
reps.
like
half reps.
£3.
I'm not
Yeah.
mentioning
Pull downs.
anybody.
Somewhere in the middle.
He changed today, though. He's sorting it out today, yeah.
Matthew.
I had a fucking eye on you today.
Yeah, we've got Matt in the background. He's on the next one. He's going to explain about these half reps. So.
All right, and that
It
concludes.
could have been constant tension, Leroy.
Yeah, it was time under. No, I can't even sell it. Sorry. All right, it's been hardcore Cut that shit out. It's been what's it fucking called? Forever Hardcore. #blessed. First one done. Fuck knows.